organization that this has to get fixed?
So the other body is the Academy Open Source Foundation. That's also an interesting group. EXR is, for example, a part of it, the EXR file format, and ACES, the color format, of course, the Academy Color Encoding System. But the EXR format is very interesting for us. It looks like every VFX heavy show goes into linear EXR. And what the size script could do for us is turning the R3D file into an EXR file, having the metadata of that lens embedded in the EXR header. But we again had to check in with Nuke to see if they read the same block of the EXR header, because it's not standardized. Outside in the corridor, you saw ColorFront with a demonstration. So they are up next. They want to now implement it as well, because we want to use it on a show we work on in January. So it's interesting that we now talk about it and explain to the market that it works very well. We can work efficient and have an amazing tool available, because everything we want to do is work on the creativity. The creativity should make the money and should sell the movie, and then reoccurrent processes should be automated. Yeah.
But isn't that part of the problem though? Because lens choicing by a DP is, that's a creative choice, right? And so not every lens is going to have, electronic metadata as part of it, right? So you're going to be using external encoders, and DPs are going to customize how the lens reacts, as Dave mentioned. But so it's an interesting time, I guess, to see how that approach is going to go through there. And if we start talking about virtual production and all of those things, and if you can actually feed in lens data to a system so that you can actually react to it, which is people are doing. And I guess what I kind of wanted to get to is it's interesting also because it's great when you can see a high-end production having access to these tools, but I'm really excited about when the smaller productions will actually have access to making it as easy as possible for everybody. So
you touched on briefly on a subject that I think needs to be hammered home a little stronger. The whole notion of AR and VR and game engines in production is not going to succeed until we get real-time metadata from lenses, because everything in those worlds depends on having accurate, interpretable geometric metadata from lenses.
Right, and it's not just lenses at that point. It's RGB color, lights, and all of that actually information can be fed into those same systems. So it's an interesting world that we're about to enter.
For the movie, we worked on a First Man, where Linus Sandgren did pick 8mm, 16mm, 35mm, 2-perf, 3-perf, 4-perf. We had even 65mm as an 11-perf military standard to get the rocket filmed right somehow. So there was so many different standards, but we shot the lens grids very carefully and then did scan it in right and then transfer it right. So this was an example that it can work if a small group really wants to work together, but it was a hell of a job to get this all done. And at the end, we wanted to have it look filmic. So we wanted to have a gate weave, the other way around, the gate weave, and we want to have certain distortions. We also did not take 100% of the dirt out. We hear this every so often that the DP picks vintage lenses because it has to look a little dirtier and a little bit more natural. But I think we can get there by shooting in the cleanest and the best way, and then put all the dirt and distortion after. We can prove this, and it's proven very well that we can do this every so often. I think the future will be to shoot as clean and clear as possible, and then put gate weave and halation and chromatic aberration. We have plugins for all of this, and can make it look as dirty as we want after.
As a recovering cinematographer, I might disagree with that. That there are certainly aspects that we want to put into photography, which is why we reach for vintage lenses that obviously aren't going to have metadata encoders in them. There are reasons why people are going for the K35s or the Cowles or vintage Pancros for that matter. That they have certain characteristics that we're baking into that image. Yes, we can emulate some of these aspects, but it's also sort of under the prerogative of the cinematographer to build that organically into the image. So there are still a lot of things to figure out here.
We hear both arguments.
Yeah.
Of course, if you can lock it and compose your image on set as it will be later for the distribution of the movie, that's a beautiful, comfortable feeling for you, I guess. But I also need to bring the other way up, that we could also do it the other way. And I guess every show is kind of configured in different ways. There are many ways to make a movie.
Thank God for that. I was a little intimidated by the town hall kind of way that this is set up with the microphone back there, but if anybody does have a question, if you want to stand up and go to the mic there so that I can see that you're there, and we'll kind of address some questions.